Wade Robson vs. MJJ Productions, the case explained. Welcome to this legal review of the case Wade Robson vs. MJJ Productions, where I'll explain what this case is and how it will work, and why Wade Robson and his legal team do have their work cut out for them. First things first, Michael Jackson is not directly on trial here. He's indirectly on trial, as the case is against MJJ Productions, founded around 1987, which is a company that Michael Jackson created to oversee his business interests, from music to touring to merchandising. So MJJ Productions is who is directly on trial, not Michael Jackson. Second thing, this is not a criminal trial. Michael Jackson is not retrospectively facing any convictions. He died not guilty of all charges, and that will not change. Instead, this is a civil trial. A civil trial is where you normally sue for money, known as damages. The losing party doesn't go to jail because the civil courts can only punish by forcing one party to pay damages, normally money. Wade Robson is suing for money. It's been reported he is seeking $1.62 billion in damages, which sounds crazy. He is arguing that due to his alleged abuse, which MJJ Productions failed to prevent from its boss, Michael Jackson, he is entitled to money to compensate him for the emotional damage, pain and suffering, loss of income, etc. The thing to know about a civil trial is that the person suing, known as a plaintiff, has the burden of proof. So Wade and his legal team, they have to prove their case. Unlike a criminal trial, where they must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, the standard of proof is much lower in a civil case. Wade and his team only have to prove that on the balance of probabilities, abuse did happen. To understand the concept of on the balance of probabilities, think of the scale of justice. Is there more weighing down one side than the other? And juries will fill the scales with what they deem important. What if they have a bad view of Michael Jackson based on what they hear? What if they think that Wade is a greedy liar who will say and do anything for a payday given all the conflicting statements he has made? They must weigh these things against one another and say, do I believe Wade's argument so much that it tips the scales in his favor? Now let's talk about what this trial is and why Wade will have two major problems. First problem is convincing a jury that he was abused by Michael Jackson. Second problem is convincing them that this company that Michael created, MJJ Productions, is somehow liable for any damages that Wade may have suffered. The first problem, convincing a jury that Wade was abused. This will be a very hard thing to convince a jury of. Why? Wade denied abuse in 1993 to police when he was a child. 12 years later, Wade then testified under oath in the 2005 trial as a grown man that nothing ever happened. Then in 2009, after Michael died, Wade wrote a glowing tribute to Michael where he said that Michael taught him the pure goodness of humanity. Wade used a very strong word, pure, and the jury will have to look at that. For a jury to believe him now, they have to believe that he was lying in 1993, that he was lying under oath, i.e. perjury, in 2005, that he was lying in 2009 with his tribute. It's a very tough situation for him because it's basically Wade 2023 versus three different Wades from the past. Who was telling the truth? Who is lying? Who has a better reason to lie? Wade lying under oath to protect Michael in 2005, or Wade lying now to potentially make $1.6 billion? In addition to Wade's testimony, he will need corroborating evidence, other so-called victims. His legal team will present these stories to bolster their case, if the judge will allow it. But he will also need Neverland staff to testify in his defense of things that they saw which were questionable. If Wade fails to convince the jury that on the balance of probabilities he was abused and suffered damages, the case is over. He loses, time to go home. But what if he does convince them that on the balance of probabilities he was abused? Will he get money? Not necessarily. Remember, Michael Jackson isn't on trial here, but MJJ Productions. Can this company be held responsible for actions allegedly committed by Michael Jackson, the boss of the company? To be liable means that you have a legal responsibility, and that was breached. And this is where things get complicated, because MJJ Productions was not a normal company. There was no head office with the MJJ logo hanging overhead where Michael and Wade spent time together. MJJ Productions was a company that existed on paper, so that businesses that interacted with Michael, such as Sony Music, interacted with the company first and Michael second. By making this legal entity, MJJ Productions, it allowed Michael to have a legal buffer between himself and those he did business with. It would also have assisted with taxation purposes because companies pay less tax than individuals. But Wade's legal team wants a jury to say that this company that existed on paper should be held responsible for the following. 1. Not providing a safe environment for children. 2. Allowing Michael to have access to children. 3. Facilitating meeting children via talent competitions, auditions, fan meet and greets, responding to fan mail, etc. 4. Failing to prevent abuse by not monitoring Michael's interactions with children at all times. Now, what they argue would make sense if MJJ Productions was an educational business and Neverland Ranch was a school with Michael Jackson as a teacher and Wade as a student. In such an environment, if abuse were to have taken place, the company could possibly be held liable. But MJJ Productions was not a school. Michael was not a teacher by profession, and Wade was not a student. Neverland was primarily Michael's private residence. Wade alleges he was abused there as a 7-year-old, long before Michael helped him and his family move to Los Angeles, so there was no business relationship between the parties at that stage. Later, Michael would enter into a business relationship with the Robsons by sponsoring Joy Robson's work visa so that they could move from Australia to America. Joy Robson is Wade's mother. Later, Michael would hire Wade to appear in a few videos and allow Wade a shot at a rap career with the short-lived and ultimately unsuccessful hip-hop group, Cure. Looking at the era when there was a business relationship, the jury will have to ask, who, if anyone, was responsible for monitoring Michael and Wade at Neverland? Was it the security guards, the maids, the drivers, Michael Jackson himself as the head of the company? Was he meant to monitor himself? Who could have possibly done something? Keeping in mind that prior to 1993's shocking allegations by Geordie Chandler, Michael was held in high esteem by most of society, seen as an innocent, childlike man. The question of whether MJJ Productions is liable is a very tough question to answer, not just for jury members, but legal experts also. A lower court threw out this case because it didn't think that it was even possible to sue MJJ Productions for these things because, as I've stated, it wasn't a school with clear-cut rules and regulations about protecting children. A high court overruled that, hence we are here right now, looking at a trial to answer these questions. One of the major problems for Wade's legal team is the fact that Wade's mother, Joy Robson, gave her permission for Wade to be at Neverland, alone with Michael, even sleeping in his bed. Joy Robson also gave permission for Michael to visit her Los Angeles apartment and have sleepovers. Joy gave permission for Wade to stay at Michael Jackson's Los Angeles apartment, known as the Hideout, without her or Chantel the sister present. So if Wade is alone with Michael, and the staff know that Wade's primary caregiver, Joy Robson, has given permission for this to occur, who are they to try and stop this? How can they supervise Wade when doing so would be a breach of her wishes as well as the privacy of Michael and Wade? It's my bet that a jury will be asking, if anyone other than Michael Jackson is responsible for anything that may have occurred, it has to be Joy Robson. She was there. She gave her permission. Who else can be blamed and held accountable? Is Wade Robson suing his mother? No, he's going after MJJ Productions because that's where the money is. The defense is going to highlight this to a jury, that Wade is nothing but an opportunistic liar who's going after the deceased man's estate because he wants a huge payday. The defense will go after Wade's credibility, with many of the conflicting statements he has made over the years. He's made changes in timelines, changes in the reasons why he didn't know it was abuse or why he denied it was abuse. They're going to mention that Wade thought that he could be liable for perjury, so he waited for the statute of limitations for lying under oath to expire before he revealed that he was abused to a therapist. All of these things paint a picture of someone who is cunning and opportunistic. So that's the case in a nutshell. Wade's allegations is issue number 1 for the jury to consider. Number 2 is whether MJJ Productions can be held liable for any abuse he may have suffered. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. Remember to share this with anyone who is an MJ fan or curious in the case. Thanks for watching.